The air on Vekar Prime was thick with tension, a charged atmosphere that hummed with the energy of negotiations gone awry. In the Grand Assembly Hall, flickering holographic displays projected the flags of various alien races, each one more imposing than the last. But at the center of it all stood Sarah Tran, a human diplomat with a determined glint in her eye. Despite the sleek, modern architecture around her, she felt acutely the weight of centuries of human struggle against alien disdain. "Humanity is not a threat," Sarah asserted, her voice steady, though it trembled slightly under the scrutiny of the assembly. She stood before a table where representatives from the 5 major alien factions sat, their expressions a mix of boredom and contempt. "We seek mutual benefit, trade, and understanding. We are not the warlike species you seem to believe we are." From the far end of the table, a figure clad in dark armor leaned forward. Zelfar, the notorious warlord of the Greshkali. His reptilian skin glistened in the harsh light, and a predatory smile curled on his lips. "Understanding. You humans are nothing but insects, scurrying about without purpose. You think your fragile diplomacy can change centuries of our views." Gasps filled the room. Sarah's heart raced, but she kept her composure. "We've brought technological advancements that cold." "Advancements," he interrupted, voice tripping with mockery. "You think your toys could intimidate the might of the Greshkali? Look around you. We are the apex of evolution. You should know your place, human." The assembly hall erupted into laughter, the echoes of their derision ringing harshly in Sarah's ears. Anger surged within her, a fierce flame igniting in her gut. She had come to this station to foster goodwill, to prove humanity's worth. And here she stood, belittled in front of a room full of disdainful eyes. "Zelfar," she said, her voice rising above the mockery, "underestimating humanity will be your greatest mistake. We've survived against odds greater than yours." Zelfar's laughter faded, replaced by a cold gaze that sent shivers down her spine. "Survive? I think not. You will soon learn that there are consequences for your insolence." He leaned closer, his breath hot and acrid. "I suggest you leave before you provoke my wrath, or else you may find yourself in a very unfortunate situation." Sarah's resolve hardened. She met his gaze without flinching, despite the fear gnawing at her insides. "I'm not afraid of you," she replied, surprising even herself with the firmness in her voice. "You can't silence us. Then you will pay dearly for your words," he hissed, a sinister glint in his eyes. "You think your kind is capable of instilling fear in the hearts of the powerful. You truly have no idea." As Zelfar rose from his seat, the other representatives shuffled nervously, sensing the impending confrontation. Sarah quickly glanced around, searching for allies among the other factions, but their eyes were cast down, unwilling to intervene. The laughter had died, replaced by an uneasy silence. Realizing she was alone, she swallowed hard, her mind racing. This was not just about her anymore. It was about the entire human race. The last thing she wanted was to be a symbol of failure. Steeling herself, she took a step back, but not before locking eyes with Zelfar one last time. "I will not back down," she declared, her voice echoing in the chamber. "You may think you're powerful, but humanity has survived against all odds. We are more than just diplomats. We are fighters. You will see." With that, she turned and strode from the assembly hall, her heart pounding in her chest. The corridor outside buzzed with activity, but her mind was elsewhere, filled with a whirlwind of thoughts. She couldn't shake the feeling that she had stepped into a much larger game, one that would determine humanity's fate among the stars. As Sarah boarded her shuttle, the weight of the encounter hung heavy in the air. Her team awaited her, faces lined with concern. "What happened in there?" one of them asked, and she could see the worry in their eyes. "It's worse than we thought," Sarah replied, her voice low. "Zelfar is planning something, and we need to be ready. We can't let them underestimate us any longer." Determination washed over her as she formulated a plan. They would show the galaxy the true spirit of humanity. No one would ever look down on them again. Back on Earth, Sarah Tran stood in the dimly lit conference room, flanked by advisors and military leaders, the air thick with uncertainty. The holographic projector flickered to life, displaying the face of Excelfar, his disdainful smirk fresh in her mind. The report of her humiliating experience at Vekar Prime reverberated through the room, and she could feel the tension rising. This is not just a diplomatic incident. It's a declaration of war, she stated firmly, her voice steady despite the anxiety gnawing at her insides. Zelfar and the Greshkelly are underestimating us, but we can't allow that to continue. Underestimating us, echoed General Taurus, a burly figure with a lined face. They are a militaristic race. We have to consider the risks before we escalate. We don't know their capabilities. Precisely. That's why we need to gather intelligence. If we remain passive, we'll only be seen as a target. Sarah shot back, her passion igniting the room. We can't let our fear dictate our actions. We must show them that humanity is not to be trifled with. A murmur of agreement rippled through the gathering, but it was tempered by caution. We need to think strategically, advised Dr. Yvette Zhang, a renowned scientist. Perhaps we could develop technology that counters their weaponry. And we should consider our allies, added Lieutenant Kim, an intelligence officer. We need to make connections with other factions who might share our interests. As discussions continued, Sarah felt a surge of hope. Maybe this was the moment to galvanize humanity into action. After hours of back-and-forth debate, a plan emerged. A small, elite task force would be formed to infiltrate Vekar Prime gather intelligence on the Greshkelly weapon, and assess their military capabilities. I want to lead the task force, Sarah declared, her heart racing. The room fell silent, a mix of surprise and concern washing over her colleagues. Sarah, this isn't just a diplomatic mission anymore. It's dangerous, General Torres cautioned. You could be captured or worse. I know the risks, she replied, her voice unwavering. But if we want to change perceptions and turn the tide in our favor, I need to be there. We have to show them that humanity is not just capable of negotiation, but also of resilience and strength. The murmurs of dissent gradually transformed into reluctant agreement. After a heated discussion, they decided to grant her request. The task force would consist of 12 members, a diverse group of soldiers, engineers, and scientists, each chosen for their unique skills and fierce loyalty to humanity. As preparations began, Sarah focused on building a cohesive team. During their first meeting, she looked into the faces of her new companions, all equally driven by the desire to prove themselves. We've all seen how humanity is viewed in this galaxy, she began, her voice resonating with determination. Today, we begin to change that narrative. We're not here just to gather intel. We're here to show them what we're made of. The room buzzed with anticipation as they shared their backgrounds and motivations. One soldier, Private Daniels, a sharp-witted tactician, spoke of his dreams of exploration beyond Earth. Another, Engineer Patel, showcased cutting-edge technology designed to disrupt enemy communications. With each revelation, the camaraderie grew, and Sarah felt an electric energy coursing through the group. Days turned into weeks as they trained rigorously, refining their skills and crafting plans. Sarah emphasized unconventional tactics, drawing on Earth's history of ingenuity and resilience. Remember, it's not just about brute strength. It's about strategy and surprise. We are the underdogs, and that gives us an advantage. As their launch date approached, the team faced both physical and emotional challenges. They conducted simulations that tested their limits, pushing each member to confront their fears. Sarah led by example, displaying vulnerability and courage, which inspired her teammates to dig deep and forge bonds that transcended their differences. The night before their departure, the group gathered for a final briefing. Sarah sensed a mix of excitement and apprehension in the air. Whatever happens tomorrow, know that we stand together. We're not just a team. We're a family, she declared, her voice strong and resolute. As they prepared to board their ship, Sarah took one last look at Earth, the blue marble that held all their hopes. She felt the weight of their mission on her shoulders, but beneath it all burned an unwavering fire. Tomorrow, they would face the Greshkili and show the galaxy the true strength of humanity. The time for change had come, and she was ready to lead the charge. The Horizon sliced through the vastness of space, the hum of its engines a comforting reminder of the mission ahead. Sarah Tran stood at the helm, her heart racing with anticipation as Vekar Prime loomed in the distance, a sprawling nexus of commerce and power. The team had spent weeks preparing, but now it was time to put their plans into action. Approaching the station, called out Lieutenant Kim, her voice steady despite the stakes. The massive structure glittered against the backdrop of stars, a city in orbit buzzing with activity. Sarah's pulse quickened. They were about to infiltrate the heart of the Greshkili. "Everyone, remember your roles," Sarah reminded them, her eyes scanning the faces of her team. "We stick to the plan. Keep comms open at all times. If anything goes wrong, we regroup at the extraction point." The team nodded, their expressions a mix of determination and anxiety. As the shuttle docked, they prepared to disembark. Clad in stealth suits designed to blend in with the station's technology, they looked every bit the elite force they aspired to be. Stepping into the station's bustling docking bay, Sarah felt a rush of adrenaline. The clang of metal and distant chatter of alien voices filled the air. She gestured for silence, and the team fell into formation. "Stick close," she whispered, leading them deeper into the station. The interior of Vekar Prime was a kaleidoscope of alien cultures, each corner teeming with colorful vendors and exotic technologies. Sarah couldn't help but marvel at the sights, but there was no time for distractions. They moved swiftly, dodging security patrols while utilizing the station's layout to their advantage. "Target acquired," whispered Private Daniels, pointing to a nearby terminal. It flickered with data streams, its interface illuminated with blue light. "That'll give us access to their mainframe. We need to get to it before the Greshkili notice we're here." "Patel, you're up," Sarah instructed. The engineer moved forward, fingers dancing across his portable console. Within moments, the terminal buzzed to life. Sarah's heart raced as she watched data scroll past. Intelligence reports, schematics, and information about the doomsday weapon. "Here it is," Paddle said, his eyes widening. "Blueprints for the weapon. It's called the Exterminator, a planet killer. If they deploy this, Earth won't stand a chance." "Download everything," Sarah urged. "We need this data to prove they're a threat." As Paddle worked, Sarah felt a wave of unease. The longer they lingered, the higher the risk of being discovered. "Hurry," she urged. Just as Paddle finished the download, alarms blared throughout the station. Red lights flashed ominously, illuminating their faces in an eerie glow. "We've been made," Kim shouted, her voice strained with urgency. "We need to move." The team sprinted away from the terminal, the pounding of their hearts syncing with the blaring sirens. They turned down a narrow corridor, only to find themselves face to face with a squad of Greshkili soldiers. Towering figures, armored and menacing, they raised their weapons, eyes glinting with malice. "Contact," Sarah shouted, drawing her sidearm. The team quickly fell into a defensive formation, weapons raised. The first volley of energy blasts lit up the corridor. Sarah ducked and rolled, instinctively firing back at the nearest soldier. "We have to push through," she yelled, adrenaline surging as she felt the weight of responsibility for her team. A fierce firefight erupted, energy bolts illuminating the cramped space. Daniels flanked to the right, covering their escape, while Paddle and Kim provided suppressive fire. Sarah maneuvered through the chaos, her training kicking in. She focused on strategy, aiming for the Greshkili's weak points, using cover effectively. Just as it seemed they might be overwhelmed, a blast from Patel's EMP device sent a surge through the Greshkili's tech, causing several of their weapons to malfunction. "Now, move," Sarah yelled, seizing the opportunity. They charged past the disoriented soldiers, making their way toward an emergency exit. As they rounded a corner, Sarah spotted a loading bay that led to the shuttle bays. "This way," she directed, leading her team through the labyrinthine passages. Breathless and battered, they finally reached the loading bay doors. Just as they slipped inside, the Greshkully reinforcements arrived, sealing off their escape route. "Patel, get us a way out," Sarah urged, urgency lacing her voice. "I'm on it," he replied, fingers flying across his console. The seconds stretched into an eternity as the sounds of the approaching soldiers echoed in the background. Come on," Sarah urged, anxiety clawing at her. They could hear the thud of heavy boots getting closer, the tension unbearable. With a final beep, Patel's console flashed green. "Got it." Doors opening. As the heavy doors creaked open, the team bolted inside the shuttle, urgency propelling them forward. "Everyone in," Sarah yelled, glancing back to see shadows creeping closer. The moment the last team member boarded, Sarah slammed the doors shut. "Engage engines," she commanded. The shuttle powered up just as the first Greshkully soldiers reached them, their furious roars muffled by the metal doors. With a surge, the shuttle launched away from the docking bay, breaking free into the starry expanse. As they worked, the atmosphere crackled with tension. Just as they finished, alarms blared, red lights flashing throughout the depot. "They're onto us," Kim shouted, eyes wide. "Time to go," Sarah yelled, and they sprinted toward the exit, adrenaline propelling them forward. They burst through the doors just as the EMP detonated, a blinding flash followed by a resonating silence that engulfed the facility. Communications went dark, and chaos erupted within the Greshkully ranks. "Move," Sarah shouted as they dashed away, Greshkully soldiers stumbling in confusion. They raced towards their drop pods, but the Greshkully were regaining their composure quickly. "Cover fire," Daniels called, laying down suppressive fire as the others boarded. Sarah felt the weight of her responsibility. They couldn't afford to lose anyone now. Just as they clambered into their pods, a blast ricocheted off the hull. "Hurry," Sarah urged, adrenaline coursing through her veins. The last pod sealed, and they shot back into the sky, narrowly escaping the furious pursuit of Greshkully ships. As they regrouped on the Horizon *, Sarah felt exhilaration mixed with relief. We did it. We struck first. But as the reality of their actions settled, she knew this was only the beginning. The Greshkully would retaliate, and they had to be ready for the storm ahead. "Prepare for our next strike," she ordered, her eyes fixed on the stars. "We're not done yet." Breathless, Sarah leaned back in her seat, adrenaline still coursing through her veins. "We did it," she gasped, a mix of relief and triumph flooding her. "We got the data. But this is just the beginning." As they sped away from Vekar Prime *, the team exchanged glances, a new resolve brewing in their hearts. They had survived their first encounter with the Greshkully, and now, armed with crucial intelligence, they were ready to take the fight to their enemies. Humanity would not be underestimated any longer. The shuttle Horizon * hurtled through the void, its engines roaring with a promise of safety as they escaped the clutches of Vekar Prime *. Sarah Tran leaned over the navigation console, her mind racing with the implications of the intelligence they had gathered. Behind her, the atmosphere in the cabin shifted from relief to simmering tension, each team member processing the gravity of their situation. "All right, everyone, let's regroup," Sarah said, her voice steadying the group. "We've got blueprints for the exterminator and intel on Greshkully troop movements. This isn't just information, it's a weapon we can use." "Weapon?" Lieutenant Kim echoed, brow furrowed. "You mean against the Greshkully? We can't take them head-on. They outnumber us and outgun us." "Exactly," Sarah replied, her mind racing. But we have the element of surprise and creativity on our side. We can devise a strategy that disrupts their operations and shows them we won't be intimidated. Private Daniels, leaning against the wall, straightened. What do you have in mind, Sarah? First, we need to analyze the data Paddle downloaded. There's a weakness in their command structure. If we can exploit that, we can create chaos among their ranks, she explained. We'll target their supply routes and communication hubs. If we can disrupt their operations, we can slow down their plans. Patel, still catching his breath, nodded. I can enhance the EMP device to knock out their comms for a short period. If we time it right, we can hit them when they're most vulnerable. Let's do it, Sarah said, determination surging within her. We'll hit 2 locations, one near their supply depot and another at a comms relay. We'll strike fast and hard, then disappear before they can react. As they plotted their course, the team's energy shifted from fear to fierce resolve. Hours later, the Horizon emerged from hyperspace near the first target, a Greshkelly supply depot nestled on a rocky moon. The sight of the facility sent a thrill of adrenaline through Sarah. This was it, the first step in showing the galaxy that humans could hold their own. Ready to deploy, Kim announced, her fingers poised over the controls. Let's move, Sarah commanded, her heart pounding. They boarded their drop pods, the small vessels designed for quick insertion and extraction. With a jolt, they launched toward the surface, the moon's rugged terrain rushing up to meet them. As they landed, the team quickly gathered their gear, moving stealthily through the shadows cast by towering rock formations. The depot was heavily guarded, Greshkelly soldiers patrolling in tight formations. Sarah crouched behind a boulder, scanning the area. 2 guards by the entrance, Daniels whispered. If we can take them out quietly, we can slip inside. Patel, you've got the EMP? Sarah asked. Ready to go, he replied, a gleam of excitement in his eyes. With a nod, Sarah initiated their plan. Daniels and Kim moved swiftly, neutralizing the guards with practiced efficiency. The moment was tense, but the team's training kicked in, their movements fluid and precise. Clear, Daniels reported, and they slipped into the depot, the interior filled with crates and machinery humming with activity. Let's find those supplies, Sarah instructed, her voice a fierce whisper. Paddle, set the EMP device on a timer. We'll hit their communications as soon as we make a mess of their stockpile. As they navigated the facility, they discovered rows of crates filled with advanced weaponry and supplies. The sight fueled their resolve. We're not just hitting their supplies, we're sending a message, Sarah said, adrenaline pumping. Patel activated the EMP device, placing it strategically in a central location. 5 minutes until it detonates, he confirmed. Let's make this count, Sarah urged, leading the team to set charges on the stockpiled weapons. Remember, we're here to disrupt, not to engage in prolonged fights. The adrenaline from their successful strike on the Greshkelly supply depot still coursed through Sarah Tran as she gathered her team aboard the Horizon. The thrill of their victory faded quickly, replaced by a growing unease. They had disrupted the Greshkelly supply lines, but the retaliation was inevitable. The galaxy had taken notice, and their small team of humans had made an enemy of a powerful warlord. Let's debrief and analyze the intel we gathered, Sarah said, her voice steady as she looked at her team, their faces still flushed with excitement. We need to understand what we're up against next. As they huddled around the main console, Paddle began compiling the data from their last mission. The disruption caused chaos in their ranks, but we need to act fast. They'll regroup and fortify their positions, he warned, eyes scanning the screen. Lieutenant Kim crossed her arms, brow furrowed. We should consider laying low for a while. Let them think we've gone back to Earth. No, Sarah replied, resolve hardening within her. We can't show weakness now. We need to keep the pressure on, or we risk losing everything we've gained. Just then, Private Daniels shifted uneasily. Sarah, there's something we should talk about. I overheard some chatter on the comms before we left. There are rumors of a mole, someone inside our team who might be feeding information to the Greshkali. A chill swept through the cabin. A mole. Sarah echoed, her mind racing. Are you sure? I can't be certain, but I heard some names mentioned. We need to be careful about who we trust, Daniels warned, his eyes darting nervously around the room. We can't let paranoia take over, Sarah said, but she felt a knot forming in her stomach. The thought of betrayal from within was almost too much to bear. We need to keep our focus on the Greshkali. As the team delved deeper into their analysis, an uneasy silence settled over them. They reviewed the intelligence Patel had gathered, but Sarah could sense the undercurrent of mistrust bubbling just beneath the surface. Hours passed, and Sarah finally broke the silence. Let's move to our next target. We need to hit their communications relay to prevent them from regrouping. The team agreed, and they set their course for the relay station on a nearby asteroid. As they prepared for the mission, Sarah felt the weight of leadership pressing down on her. She couldn't afford any mistakes, not now. As they arrived at the relay station, the tension was palpable. The facility was heavily fortified, the presence of Greshkali soldiers evident. They would have to rely on stealth to get inside. Stay close and move quietly, Sarah instructed, her voice barely above a whisper. They disembarked from the shuttle, slipping into the shadows. As they crept through the rocky terrain, Sarah's instincts screamed that something was off. Once inside the relay station, they worked quickly, using Patel's EMP to disable the security systems. Just as they were about to breach the central control room, Sarah felt a presence behind her. Stop, a voice commanded, echoing through the dimly lit corridor. A figure stepped into view, a familiar face that made Sarah's heart sink. It was Specialist Ortega, a member of their team who had been quiet and unassuming. What are you doing here? Sarah asked, confusion mingling with dread. Ortega's expression was unreadable, a mix of defiance and fear. I didn't want it to come to this, Sarah, but they know too much. I had to protect myself. Protect yourself. Sarah's voice was low, anger rising within her. You're betraying us. After everything we've done. They're going to come for you, Ortega said, backing away slowly. I had to survive, and I couldn't trust anyone. You were all too reckless. Reckless. Sarah couldn't believe what she was hearing. We're fighting for our survival. We're fighting for Earth. Before Ortega could respond, a burst of energy erupted from behind him. A shot rang out, hitting him squarely in the shoulder. He staggered, pain etched across his face, and crumpled to the ground. Get down, Kim shouted, instinctively pulling Sarah behind cover as Greshkali soldiers poured into the corridor, weapons raised. Retreat, Sarah ordered, adrenaline surging. We need to fall back to the shuttle. They darted back the way they had come, dodging blaster fire as they fought their way through the station. Ortega lay on the floor, groaning in pain, but Sarah couldn't stop. They couldn't risk being captured or overwhelmed. Leave him, Kim shouted as they sprinted away. He's compromised. No, Sarah yelled, her heart aching. We can't abandon him. But as they reached the exit, the Greshkali forces were closing in. The sound of boots echoed behind them, and Sarah knew they had to make a choice. Save one of their own or save themselves. Patel, cover us, she yelled as she turned back to grab Ortega, adrenaline propelling her forward. Just as she reached him, a blinding flash of light illuminated the corridor. The EMP device detonated behind them, and Sarah felt a jolt of energy surge through the air. The Greshkali soldiers stumbled, their weapons short-circuiting. Go, 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 Daniel shouted, and they surged toward the shuttle, dragging Ortega with them. Once inside, they slammed the doors shut, hearts racing. As they blasted off the asteroid, Sarah took a deep breath, her heart heavy with the betrayal and the weight of their mission. Ortega lay on the floor, groaning in pain, and Sarah knew that the stakes had just risen dramatically. They were in a fight not just against the Greshkali, but against betrayal from within. "What now?" Kim asked, her voice tight with tension. "We regroup," Sarah replied, her jaw set. "And we prepare for the storm. This isn't over, not by a long shot." As the Horizon soared away from the asteroid, Sarah Tran felt the weight of their recent actions pressing heavily on her shoulders. The screams of betrayal echoed in her mind, and the sight of Ortega, wounded and compromised, haunted her thoughts. She needed to focus to keep her team united and strong. "Set a course for the nearest safe haven," Sarah commanded, her voice steady but tinged with urgency. "We need to regroup and assess our next steps." The team nodded, each member lost in their thoughts. Private Daniels worked the controls, guiding the shuttle toward an uncharted planet that offered some semblance of safety. As they entered the planet's atmosphere, the vibrant greens and blues of the lush surface spread out below, a stark contrast to the chaos of their recent missions. Once they landed in a secluded area surrounded by dense foliage, Sarah gathered everyone in the cramped cabin. "We need to talk about what just happened. Ortega is compromised, and we can't trust anyone without scrutiny now," she began, her gaze sweeping over her team. Kim crossed her arms, frustration evident on her face. "So what do? We can't keep second-guessing ourselves, or we'll never make progress." Patel, his hands still shaking from the adrenaline, chimed in. "We should analyze Ortega's data. If he was a mole, he might have left clues about how deep the infiltration goes." "That's a good point," Sarah agreed, feeling a flicker of hope. "We'll run through everything we have to determine if there are any indications of other threats." As they reviewed the intel, tension hung in the air. It was an exhausting process, sifting through files and records while trying to maintain a sense of normalcy. The atmosphere felt charged, and every whisper of doubt seemed to echo louder than before. Suddenly, a warning alarm blared from the console. "Incoming transmission," Daniels called out, his fingers flying over the controls. "Put it through," Sarah commanded, anxiety gnawing at her. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing a face she had come to loathe. Zelfar, the Greshkali warlord. "Ah, the brave humans," he sneered, a smug smile playing on his lips. "I see you've made quite the name for yourselves, disrupting my supply lines, attacking my soldiers. But now you've revealed yourselves as little more than insects swatting at the foot of a giant." "What do you want, Zelfar?" Sarah demanded, her voice steady despite the surge of anger within her. "I want to extend an invitation," he replied, feigning civility. "You have something I desire, information about my operations, but you are in over your heads, and I'm willing to negotiate." "Negotiate?" Kim scoffed. "With you? After everything you've done?" "Consider it a mercy," Zelfar continued, undeterred. "You see, I value loyalty. It's something you humans struggle to maintain. A little bird told me you have a traitor among you." The room fell silent. Sarah's heart raced. Was Ortega already divulging their secrets? Zelfar leaned closer to the hologram, his reptilian eyes glinting with malice. "Join me, or your little rebellion will come to an end. I will hunt you down, one by one. You have 30 cycles to make your choice." With that, the transmission ended, leaving an icy silence in its wake. The team exchanged uneasy glances, the implications of Zelfar's words hanging heavily in the air. "Do we even consider it?" Patil asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "No," Sarah said, her conviction fierce. "We're not giving in to him. This is a matter of survival. If he knows about Ortega, he might have eyes on us already. We need to act quickly." "We should move to another location and set up a more secure base," Daniel suggested, his brow furrowed. "We can't stay here. It's too exposed." Sarah nodded. "Good idea. We'll make our way to the other side of the planet. There are some caves I've studied that should provide us with cover and a place to regroup." As they prepared to leave, Sarah felt a flicker of doubt. Zelthar's words echoed in her mind, and the thought of a traitor among them gnawed at her. They had to stay vigilant, especially now. Once they reached the caves, the darkness enveloped them, a stark contrast to the vibrant world outside. They set up a temporary command center, relying on makeshift equipment to analyze the data they had collected. Hours turned into a tense silence, the weight of uncertainty pressing down on them. As they worked, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, as if Zelthar had eyes everywhere. "We need to draw them out," Sarah said finally, breaking the silence. "If we can create a diversion, we might be able to lure Zelthar's forces away from our true position. We'll set traps and create false signals." Patel raised an eyebrow. "That could work, but it'll be dangerous. We'll have to split up to cover more ground." Sarah felt the weight of responsibility settle over her. "We'll do it as a team. No one goes alone. We have to trust each other." As they meticulously planned their next moves, Sarah felt a renewed sense of purpose. They were facing an uphill battle, but they were in it together. With every heartbeat, she reminded herself that they would fight back, together or not at all. As night fell over the planet, the darkness felt less oppressive. It was a reminder that even in the deepest shadows, they could find their light, and they would not back down. They were humanity's hope, and they would show the galaxy what they were capable of. The dim light of the cave flickered as the team worked tirelessly, each member focused on their tasks. Sarah Tran paced back and forth, strategizing their next moves while the weight of Zelthar's threat loomed over them. The plan to draw the Greshkali forces into a trap was risky, but it was their best chance to turn the tide. "Okay, everyone, let's finalize our roles," Sarah said, gathering the team in a small clearing within the cave. "We'll need to spread out to cover more ground. Each of you will set up a false signal while also laying traps along the likely approach routes." Kim raised her hand. "I'll take the south path. It's less monitored, and I can rig a few explosives there to create a diversion." "Good. Patel, you'll head to the west. Set up your EMP device near the comms tower. If we can disable their communications again, we can buy ourselves some time." "I can do that." Patel nodded, determination in his eyes. "But we need to make sure we're quick. Once they realize what we're doing, they'll come down hard on us. Daniels, you're with me. We'll secure the north route and create some distractions," Sarah instructed. "Remember, our goal is to make them think we're weak and scattered. If they come after us, we'll hit them with everything we have." As the team split up, Sarah felt a surge of adrenaline. This was their moment to strike back, to show the Greshkali that humanity wasn't to be underestimated. The cave echoed with the sounds of their preparations as they set out, each member armed with a mix of high-tech equipment and makeshift weapons. The moon hung low in the sky, casting a silvery glow across the landscape as they moved stealthily through the underbrush. Sarah led Daniels toward the north route, her senses heightened. Every rustle in the foliage made her pulse quicken. They stopped near a cluster of rocks overlooking a narrow valley, the perfect spot to set their traps. "Here's where we'll lay the explosives," Sarah whispered, pointing to the ground. "If they come this way, they'll be caught off guard." Daniels nodded, moving to plant the charges while Sarah activated a holographic projector, sending a false signal into the air that mimicked their previous communications. The signal would draw the Greshkali's attention, making them think they had isolated a single target. Just as they finished setting up, a low rumble echoed through the valley. Sarah held her breath, glancing at Daniels. "Did you hear that?" "Yeah," he replied, frowning. "Sounds like engines. They're already mobilizing." "Quick, let's get back to the cave," Sarah ordered. They raced through the underbrush, hearts pounding, knowing they had to warn the others. As they neared the cave entrance, the sounds of chaos erupted behind them. Greshkali soldiers were moving through the trees, their heavy boots thudding ominously against the ground. "They're onto us," Daniel shouted, adrenaline surging as they sprinted the final stretch to the cave. Inside, Patel and Kim were already monitoring the situation. They're deploying forces all over the area, Paddle reported, urgency in his voice. It looks like they're trying to close in on us from all sides. Perfect. They're falling right into our trap, Sarah said, her mind racing. We need to draw them out, keep them engaged while we hit them from multiple angles. Are you sure this will work? Kim asked, concern etched on her face. We've already lost one team member. We can't afford more casualties. Trust me, Sarah replied, steeling herself. We're ready for this. We'll show them that humanity fights back. They began activating the traps they had set, each explosion a thunderous reminder of their resolve. The Greshkali forces, caught off guard, stumbled as their formations broke apart. The chaos they had created was exactly what they needed. Let's move, Sarah shouted, leading her team out of the cave. The night air was thick with smoke and the acrid scent of burning debris, creating a battlefield where they could finally reclaim their agency. They charged forward, adrenaline surging through their veins. The Greshkali soldiers, now disorganized, fired wildly, their panic evident. As the team split into smaller groups, Sarah focused on the nearest cluster of enemies, utilizing the cover of darkness and chaos. Flank them, she yelled, her voice cutting through the chaos as they moved in. Daniels and Kim maneuvered to one side while Paddle circled to the other, creating a pincer movement. Sarah engaged the nearest soldier, her training kicking in. She ducked and weaved, her movements fluid as she disarmed him, quickly turning his weapon against his allies. With each takedown, she felt a sense of empowerment. They were fighting back, and they were not alone. The sounds of battle echoed around them, each explosion marking a moment of defiance. The Greshkali forces struggled to regroup, their commanders shouting orders, but the confusion worked to humanity's advantage. Keep pushing forward, Kim shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos as they pressed the attack. As they fought, Sarah caught a glimpse of movement out of the corner of her eye. A shadow flickered in the trees, and for a moment, she felt a familiar chill of dread. Was Ortega's betrayal still haunting them, or was it something more? She shook off the feeling, focusing on the fight. They were on the verge of turning the tide, and she wouldn't let doubt cripple them now. As they pressed the assault, they would show the Greshkali that humanity had teeth, and they were ready to bite back. Victory was within reach, but the real battle was just beginning. In the heat of the moment, Sarah steeled herself, knowing that no matter the cost, they would emerge stronger, united against their foes. Together, they would forge their fate. The chaos of battle raged around Sarah Tran as she fought alongside her team. The air thick with smoke and the acrid scent of explosives. Each explosion reverberated through the ground beneath her feet, a reminder of the stakes at hand. They were not just fighting for survival. They were fighting for their very existence. Push forward, Sarah shouted, rallying her team. The Greshkali soldiers were disoriented, their formations crumbling as they attempted to regroup. We can't let them regroup. Kim fired her weapon with precision, taking down another soldier. We need to focus on the command center, she yelled, pointing toward a structure emerging from the haze of battle. If we take out their leadership, we can turn the tide. Patel nodded, his hand steadying the EMP device as he prepared for their next move. I can disable their communications and sensors again, but we need to get closer. Let's do it, Sarah replied, feeling the rush of adrenaline surge through her. On my mark. With a synchronized movement, the team advanced toward the command center, navigating through the chaos. The Greshkali were beginning to rally, and Sarah could sense the urgency of their mission. If they didn't act fast, they could lose everything they had fought for. As they approached the center, they encountered a group of Greshkali soldiers guarding the entrance. Without hesitation, Sarah signaled her team to take cover. The battle was shifting, and they had to outmaneuver their opponents. Patel, set the EMP on a timer, she instructed, her mind racing. We'll create a distraction and then breach the entrance. Patel nodded, quickly programming the device. 30 seconds until detonation, he said, glancing at Sarah. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Sarah yelled, and they sprang into action. With a deafening blast, the EMP detonated, sending a shockwave through the command center. Greshkilly's soldiers staggered, their weapons short-circuiting as chaos erupted. This was their moment. Go! Go! Sarah shouted, charging into the entrance, her team hot on her heels. They pushed through the chaos, the sounds of combat fading behind them as they focused on their objective. Inside, the command center was a maze of screens and control panels, the air charged with tension. Greshkilly commanders scrambled to regain control, their voices frantic. Sarah's heart raced as she scanned the room, searching for the main console. There, over there, Kim pointed, rushing toward the central hub. We can disable their operations from there. As they reached the console, Sarah worked quickly, her fingers flying over the controls. I need access codes. Find me something. Patel sifted through nearby files, tossing aside anything irrelevant. I found a terminal, he shouted, connecting his device to the console. We can lock them out. The tension was palpable, and Sarah could hear footsteps approaching. We don't have much time, she urged, adrenaline coursing through her veins. Just then, a Greshkilly commander stormed into the room, eyes blazing with rage. You dare intrude here, he bellowed, raising his weapon. Not for long, Sarah shot back, adrenaline fueling her resolve. She and Kim quickly took cover, firing at the commander while Patel continued to hack the system. Got it, Patel exclaimed, the screen flickering as he locked the Greshkilly out of their systems. They're cut off from communications. Perfect. Now let's make sure they can't regroup, Sarah shouted, and they began to set charges throughout the command center, placing them strategically in key areas. As they worked, the commander rallied his soldiers, their furious shouts echoing in the small room. We will crush you, he roared, charging toward them. Not today, Kim yelled, firing her weapon with precision. The blast sent the commander reeling, giving Sarah the moment she needed to finish setting the last charge. Time to go, Sarah shouted, glancing at Patel. How long until they explode? 2 minutes, Patel replied, urgency in his voice. Let's move, Sarah ordered, and they dashed toward the exit, the sounds of Greshkilly soldiers closing in behind them. As they burst out of the command center, the chaos of the battlefield enveloped them once more. Explosions rocked the area, sending debris flying, but Sarah felt a surge of hope. They had done it. They had disrupted the Greshkilly command structure. Back to the shuttle, Kim yelled, guiding the team toward their escape route. They fought through the remaining soldiers, each step a reminder of the battle they had waged. As they reached the perimeter, they saw the Horizon waiting for them, its engines humming in anticipation. Get in. Go. Go, Sarah shouted, urgency in her voice as they boarded the shuttle. The doors slid shut behind them, and they launched into the sky just as the command center erupted in a fiery explosion, the shockwave sending a tremor through the air. As they ascended, Sarah took a deep breath, feeling a rush of exhilaration mixed with relief. They had survived, and they had struck a significant blow against the Greshkilly. Did we do it? Daniels asked, glancing at Sarah. Yeah, we did, she replied, her heart swelling with pride for her team. But we can't let our guard down. They'll come back, and we need to be ready. As they soared through the stars, Sarah looked out at the vastness of space, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. They were no longer just survivors, they were warriors. Together, they would continue to fight for their freedom and the future of humanity. And as long as they stood united, they would show the galaxy that humans were not to be trifled with. They had risen from the ashes, and they were ready to take on whatever came next.